Good evening, everybody. It is kind of good to be back. I would much more rather be using my desktop right now. As you can probably see, the angle is a little familiar from back when was using my laptop. For some reason, after not having any issues since buying it, my keyboard isn't working on my desktop. So, I'm on my laptop and it's not as good. So I'm going to wait for a couple people to come in. I wasn't necessarily planning to do a live stream today. I was actually going to work and edit a little more the presentation for Year of the Rat Part 2. For those of you that haven't seen it, it's pretty awesome stuff about, the issue of the Clinton administration's ties to the People's Republic of China, which we'll discuss a little more in a couple minutes. But today, we're going to discuss a number of topics that are essentially, I think some of them are connected. Some of them may stand on their own. Um, I don't think it's going to be very similar to the one yesterday, in which we discussed a lot about, uh, you know, cheery topics like genocides and, you know, what to do about racism and things like that. That, by the way, yesterday, it's this topic, genocides and the Holocaust. I don't think people really have an answer to it. They talk about it a lot, and they use those topics because they evoke a lot of emotion, but they don't have I talk a bit about some issues that I think are becoming as you know as big of a crisis as to become a genocide in the future. I talk a lot about Venezuela. I think a genocide could occur there at some point, but do I have the answer for it? No. Um, I think I try to talk about how to avoid those topics, and I think that's more helpful. And I don't believe that when you see a lot of these people throwing around the word genocide or the word Holocaust or racism or ethnic cleansing, those people don't necessarily have any solution in mind. And we're going to get a little to at least as far as the Clintons are concerned, some of those issues where these people, they talk a lot about genocide, but in reality they do very little to address those issues. Let me just check if people are able to hear me. I'm just going to ask in the chat if there's anybody in the chat. Please let me know. So who got caught with their pants down now? Thank you, Lisa PDX, for tuning in. We are getting to that. I know everybody wants to know about that. It is a little more of a a fun topic to talk about. What happened with the Clintons is that in 2008, now I thought when I saw the headline and I heard this story from Dick Morris that they were talking about last year's presidential campaign, but in 2008, when Hillary, I just had some acid come up in my throat, so I'm sorry for, I don't know, maybe I do have some heartburn or something, but look, in 2008, Hillary Clinton ran for president, and it wasn't as scandal-ridden of a run as was last year because people were tired of President Bush. The news media had much more of a control over which embarrassing material came out. That's why some of the other incidents that could have torpedoed a presidency also didn't necessarily come out, like the Clinton Foundation donor issues. Now, apparently there's a guy, his name was Burns. Let me see here. Burns Strider. It's kind of a strange name, Burns Strider. He was her spiritual advisor, and according to media, he co-founded the American Values Network, a progressive Christian lobbying group. He would send her scripture every morning, according to the Times, and advise her on spiritual matters. he would so there were complaints against him made by members of the Clinton campaign in 2008, and a 30-year-old female campaign worker was um, bringing that up and going to the campaign manager, Patty Solis Doyle, who, if you read Game Changer, and Game Changer is actually written by a guy who's been exposed as a sexual harasser. I think it was it Mark Halperin? There were two authors for that book. I think Mark Halperin was the one. It was either Mark Halperin or John Heilemann. I think John Heilemann. Oh, I'm not. I don't want to be wrong. So Mark Halperin, sexual. I guess it's him. Thank you, Google, for solving that mystery. Yeah, Mark Halperin, in his book, who's also since been accused of sexual harassment by numerous women at, I think it was MSNBC. So um, he writes about the friction between Patty Solis Doyle, who was Hillary's campaign manager for much of the campaign, and some of the other campaign leaders like Mark Penn, who was her pollster. Now, what she did was she went to Clinton and she said, it says here, Patty Solis Doyle is said to have taken the issue up with Clinton, urging her to fire him, but at that moment she decided not to. 8 former campaign officials allege. Strider, however, was eventually fired, and Clinton's legal team has released a statement on the matter. So it says, to ensure a safe working environment, the campaign had a process to address complaints of misconduct or harassment. When matters arose, they were reviewed in accordance with these policies, and appropriate action was taken, the statement said. This complaint was no exception. Um, so I do have that link in the description. For some reason, there's another one about Tony Campolo or something. This is being released by the New York Times, this story. And I hate to give, I don't want to look like I'm ripping off Dick Morris or Scott Adams, these other people that they do the I'm wearing these glasses or whatever, so I'm kind of different. But everything I talk about is my opinion. Some of these other people, they did meet Clinton, or they've at least talked to people who know her. No, I'm really going on my knowledge based on readings. So if you want more in-depth stuff, you should check out Dick Morris's Deep Six, the Deep State podcast. I don't trust everything Morris says, but I do know that he has more insider knowledge than a lot of other people that talk about the Clintons, because he's kind of this Count of Monte Cristo character. The guy who's as close to the dirt as possible. I don't know if I use the right metaphor. Maybe maybe the Count of Monte Cristo isn't the best character. He's kind of who's the main character in The Great Gatsby. He's the guy, the old chap, whatever the guy's name was. The one who, the narrator. He's always there, but he never really talks about his own actions. That's Dick Morris, and then Scott Adams has his own. Scott Adams has his own perspective on these things. So we'll see what happens with the New York Times coming out with it. But it's interesting that it is the New York Times coming out with it. The same thing happened. Now look, this is a story from 2008. Why did it take now 10 years to come out that this guy, you see here, Bernd Strider, why did it take so much time for him to be exposed? It's the same issue that we should be talking about with regards to the Harvey Weinstein scandal. And I don't think it's only because of the Clintons. I think it might have some sort of effect. But the real problem that we're talking about is that there's a network of people with public, progressive, and liberal leanings that they use their power within that community, within that network of powerful people that promote those ideas in order to avoid their own crimes and shield their actions by saying, well, I'm involved with, you know, correct the record, whatever the fuck it is, one of those like weird, crime organizations that the Clintons are involved in. So for me, we're going to have to wait to see how many details come out, because if this is something that looks like it was put together over a long period of time, the question is, and I think this is from Maggie Aberman from the New York Times. The question is, why did you wait until now? I mean, this guy, he could have been harassing ladies for years and years, and I'm somebody. I think that sexual harassment in the workplace is a problem. Probably not for the same reason that women's rights activists think so. I think it does create an unprofessional and reckless, loose cannon work atmosphere, and it's unfair for anybody to work in that situation. I hear about men who complain that they don't like seeing, I guess they're the more timid men, but they say when you have people being sexually harassed at the office, it detracts from the seriousness of the place. And this is a problem that's been, in my workplace, there are only 2 women on our floor. There's a few more women upstairs. I think they do a rather good job of giving people the space that they need, and not having too much of this, Animal House atmosphere at the workplace. And outside the workplace, I don't really care as much. I'll be honest with you. I'm not into this whole stuff where, catcalling is a problem or whatever. Look, when you leave your house or your place of business, you're dealing with a different set of rules. When you're in your house, yeah, you're not supposed to commit acts of domestic violence, or, I guess, assault your wife, or the wife assault the husband. Which, by the way, in the Gary Byrne interview, he does confirm that Hillary Clinton abused Bill Clinton physically. So there's that. But yeah, in the workplace, the idea that sexual harassment is an it's an exaggerated issue. I don't know if that's really the point. The point is that you do need good guidelines on how to behave in the office. And I think they have to be it's almost like unwritten rules. The more you write the rules down, the easier it is for people to simply find ways to around them or whatever. It's really a question of, are we raising a nation of people that are capable of functioning in an environment where there's, both genders are in the office, and when we end up having 75 genders, like they're going to do at a certain point, there's going to be more genders than there are people, racing in the Brickyard 500, or whatever it's called. There's going to be a few. So how are you going to deal with sexual harassment when that happens? Maybe these gender creators should figure that out. That might be a nice project for them. Keep them occupied. Keep them from ruining everything else that they've been ruining, like gyms and like other public accommodations. But we can see that already it's difficult for just 2 genders, the 2 genders that actually do exist, to interact on a professional level in the office. And you know me, I'm kind of a jokester. I'm very loose with anything, in order to make myself laugh here. I hope you guys enjoy it too. I hope you guys are enjoying yourselves in the chat. I don't police the chat, but this isn't a place of business. And the Clintons never understood that. That's why the Oval Office was full of sexual harassment. It was him just going full on like some sort of Spanish bull looking for his his dairy cow all the time, all the time. That was Bill Clinton. And then you had Anthony Weiner, right? And by the way, Hillary Clinton also had her brother marry the daughter of Barbara Boxer. Now, how that happened? No, he. Sorry, Hillary Clinton had her brother marry the daughter of Barbara Boxer. I don't know. I think I said the opposite, but her brother Tony married the daughter of Barbara Boxer. So that's another issue, that they mix politics with their personal lives. And her brother, who's a shady, uh, pretty much a criminal figure, he got her. The Clintons got one of Hillary Clinton's Senate colleagues, Barbara Boxer. They got her family involved with their shady garbage. That's not very professional either. Uh, she married her daughter off to this guy who's related to these people who were, they were congressmen. I think the guy's father, Mark Mezvinsky's dad was a congressman. So everything with them is either a sexual creep move. That's what Bill Clinton will do, or some sort of marriage of convenience and power, like they're the Medicis or something, or this is, an episode of I don't know, is Downton Abbey about that? Help me out here. I'm not watching as much TV as I used to. Gabriel Swift says only two genders. Clintons will pay the price, I'm hoping. Where are Andrew McCabe's texts? Excellent. Yeah, excellent point. I was watching a lot of that. A lot of points about that. Yeah, Andrew McCabe. I think if it's revealed that he's been saying things he shouldn't have been saying, you're going to see um, more criminal indictments come against these FBI people. I think it can happen. I don't know how. It's going to be a real problem, because how are federal agents going to be prosecuted? I mean, the FBI, can you trust it to investigate its own people? It's a very questionable issue. So essentially, Hillary Clinton had this spiritual advisor. And Lisa brings up another issue, which we'll get to in a second. But thank you. Thanks for being so attentive and helping today. I like it that I get the professional women here and the Clintons don't, because they apparently they corrupt everything that they touch. And thankfully, Lisa, I don't know what you look like, but I'm sure you're a very professional lady, and that you know exactly how to keep people focused on the important issues. And that's all I'm going to say, because I want to keep this professional. But in any case, there's an issue here with how many people do the Clintons have to be associated with that are creepers, that seem to just end up going to prison for weird shit, or getting fired for God knows what. Think about some of the people who didn't get kicked out, but who were nevertheless extremely creepy. This David Brock, what a weirdo. Though he's not officially affiliated with the Clintons, yeah, he is a creeper. He's this gay dude who he was first digging up dirt on them, and then later had some sort of epiphany that the truth is with the Clintons, even though it turns out they lied about nearly everything that they denied, including Jennifer Flowers, which is something that he helped expose. They have this David Brock, this weirdo, just walking around. Well, David Brock apparently hired this Burns Strideword, or whatever the fuck his name is. Burns Strider. It's gonna be a hard name to remember. Burns Strider. So he hired the dude for one of his organizations. I heard on the Dick Morris report earlier, after he was fired by the Clinton campaign, meaning that they probably let him go. First of all, he was given 2 weeks docked pay originally, and they didn't want to fire him, and eventually they did. And meanwhile, Patty Solis Doyle, this female head of the Clinton campaign, ended up getting fired. Probably not for this reason, because I think that they were going to shake up the campaign anyway. But on the appearances of it, on the surface, is a real problem. How can you talk away the fact that you had the head of your campaign, Patty Solis Doyle, come to you and warn you of sexual harassment allegations against your spiritual advisor, and then for whatever reason you end up firing her, or moving her to a different assignment, as they did? um it's a real problem. It doesn't make logical sense. uh Thank you, Pinochet, for joining, and thanks for your stories earlier, or I think it was yesterday. Now, Lisa brought up another issue again, where it says, ask Uma the importance of marrying corrupt/evil actors. You can't be compelled to testify. There's a fantastic movie, a British movie, about that whole issue of I think it's in English common law, and we inherited it from them. That and a lot of the stuff I learn about the law, I didn't go to law school. I'm not planning to become a lawyer. I learned from examples that come out, courtroom shit, things like that. Um, I could be wrong about them. And if you're a lawyer, or you're feel free to come and correct me. But there's a fantastic movie concerning that called Brighton Rock, where this young guy, this thug in Brighton, which is in England, forces this woman who's pretty innocent to marry him in order to help cover up his crimes. And he's a vicious guy. And it's a fantastic movie, Brighton Rock. I'll put it in the chat. Find the link to it. Brighton Rock. So yeah, Lisa's talking a lot about that, and she's right. It's a real issue. That's why the Clintons won't testify against each other. They're in it for life. Their marriage is more an issue of criminal liability than it is about building a relationship and a family, which is what traditionally marriages were about. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't all about romance, but they were definitely about building a family, or building, establishing yourself, living in a civil society. There's a lot of debate about what the meaning of marriage is now. And I have to say that the Clintons have done all they can to sully the path with all sorts of shenanigans that they've done. Both Clintons, I'd say, both Hillary and Bill. Bill with his constant cheating, which is still amusing in my mind, except for the rape part, which let's not joke about that. But some of the other stuff he does, yeah, I still laugh at it. Doesn't make it right. It doesn't make him a good spouse. And Hillary, also, with her abusive relationship with her husband, probably drove him to continue cheating on her, even though he was very predisposed to do it. And then you see these people just drawn to them like a magnet. These weirdos like this Burns Strider guy. It's a real issue here. And I don't think that I think that at some point people have to say enough. And the people I'm talking about are the people that have supported the Clintons over the years. If you want to be taken seriously as people that believe in ideas, you can't be so committed to the personas of these people as the Clinton supporters have been. And the same thing with Obama people. The David Axelrod, who is one of Obama's central apologists over the years, has always talked of him having these narratives, and being a symbolic creature of unity and reconciliation and racial healing or whatever. Well, none of it's turned out to be true. Symbolically, he's been all those things, but in point of fact, he hasn't. President Obama has been just as much of a disgrace to the concept of racial healing and reconciliation as President Clinton has been to the concept of marriage and of family. They're horrible people. All the Clintons and the Obamas. Well, Michelle Obama, I wouldn't say is a horrible person, but she's not the saint that people portray her as. But Hillary Clinton is a horrible person. I'd say George Bush isn't a great guy either. And Laura Bush is not really. The difference with these Republican presidents is that they don't have wives that necessarily take a big chunk of the public eye. So I don't think you can really compare them, and maybe they should. I don't know, but I think it's not in Melania Trump's character to really step out there. It's not in Laura Bush's character to step out there. Wasn't in Barbara Bush's. So Gabriel and Pinochet are talking about the spirit cooking. Yeah, I've heard a little more about the spirit cooking coming up again. Why don't you guys give like a little short summary about why it's such a big issue again? Because I do remember it coming up. Other stories going on today. So I'm going to come to the Kerry Logan Act issue a bit later. Okay, I'm not trying to go too long. First of all, the State of the Union address. I think that we're going to have a couple days to unpack from it. First of all, because there's more people who are going to be reacting to it than usual. Gabriel Swift says Michelle is a man. Well, I've seen some videos, man. I'm not going to, I'm going to plead agnostic on this. I'm not going to say I agree with Gabriel Swift, but I'm not going to say I disagree with Gabriel Swift. It's kind of, it's one of these things where your heart says no, but your mind and eyes say I don't know. I mean, who does anybody really want to know the answer to that? I'm a bit scared. Maybe I'm not as courageous of a inquisitive thinker as Gabriel Swift, but I have no personal problem with Michelle Obama or Michael Obama, as the audio has shown a couple times. but all those theories, they are funny. And now that there's all these rumors about Donald Trump, the latest rumor is that he's banging Nikki Haley. Well, if you're going to throw rumors like that, then Gabriel Swift has every right to throw out the rumors about Michael Obama being the real first lady. It's only fair, and it's unfortunate because there's a lot of issues that are going on in the country that are not being talked about. Like there's people. I was debating somebody earlier on comments on Facebook about whether the tariffs are a good idea, and we had about 10 or 12 minutes of good back and forth comments before I went on with my day. Very good conversation, but most people don't care about that. It said it's odd there are no pictures of Michelle while pregnant. I don't know. Maybe there are, and we've never seen them. But if you guys say so, oh man, this isn't where I wanted the podcast to go today. I guess you guys have brought out the worst in me, except for Lisa. You did bring up a couple good points, but Gabriel, you can stick around because I guess now that there's rumors that Donald Trump is banging Nikki Haley, I guess anything goes. We can say anything, right? Not sure, just heard about it, but it sounded like a doozy. Exposes the early Clinton dealings. What are you talking about? Gabriel says 2 men can't have children. So anyway, the State of the Union address is going to be focusing on the economy. I think, though, and I'm going to minimize the chat window, so I'll come back to you guys in a few minutes. You have to minimize like a fuckload of windows. So here, let's get concentrated in the darkness here. The State of the Union address, usually it is kind of important every year, but with President Trump, it just gets elevated because the opposition has to come out with a rebuttal. And the opposition, I believe, this year will come in the form of 3 different figures on the left, and it shows a real problem with the left. There's going to be Joseph Kennedy III, who will give the official Democratic Party rebuttal, and then there's Maxine Waters, who's going to go on BET with Angela Rye and give the mental health communities, mental health patient communities assessment of the State of the Union speech, which will be interesting because we haven't really heard from them traditionally. And then you will also have I think Bernie Sanders with his doom and gloom, let's fucking kill everybody and take their horses rebuttal, and that, I think that's it. But there might be more. If I've missed any, you can put in the chat. And I think it does show division in the opposition to Donald Trump, and I'm sure that like 6 months ago, if the State of the Union was 6 months ago, there would also be a neoconservative, rebuttal of the State of the Union address. But there's not going to be, and the neoconservative movement, the people that are the never Trumpers, are gradually starving to death. They're falling apart. Nobody cares what they have to say, and they shouldn't have been as important as they became. There's Alan Dershowitz. People put in the comments on one of these stories. I think it was yesterday or today, that he's slowly mutating into a neoconservative. So what? Fuck the neoconservatives. Now these other 3 people that are going to be doing the rebuttals. Okay, so let's admit, yes, there has to be a response and there has to be an alternative. You can't just say, President Trump is the president, everybody should just listen to his State of the Union and accept it. That's not the way a functioning democracy works. So I'm fine with any of the 3 people giving the response. But when you have this muddled expression of opposition between 3 different states of mind, you have the official shill corporate Democrat state of mind represented by Joe Kennedy, and then you have Maxine Waters, she's an icon of this shrill, false, astroturfed resistance movement. Okay, so she's delivering another one, and then you have Bernie Sanders, who is pretty much, I mean, he's still considered the voice of progressivism as of today. But really, what are their accomplishments? All 3 of them, they're nothing. They've gone and turned the Democratic Party into a caricature of various values that don't really have any connection to each other. There's no connection between one wing that wants to serve corporate donors and lie to minorities and the poor and tell them that they have their best interests in mind, and then you have another faction that's frantic and histrionic people that they go out in the streets and they yell and they want to impeach and whatever, and Antifa, which is the Maxine Waters faction. There's no connection between those 2, and then there's even less connections with the Bernie Sanders wing, which does have a program. I'm not going to not. I think if anything, as much as I attack Bernie, he at least has his own alternatives. He talks about the net neutrality in a lot more depth and detail than his other Senate colleagues on the Democratic side. He talks about the universal health care in a lot more depth and detail. This is a person, Bernie Sanders, the fact that he's still in a position of leadership, yes, it's to his credit. It's also, a show of how dysfunctional the rest of the Democratic Party is when they pick Joseph Kennedy to come out there. He's not been really a person who's done anything of significance within the Democratic Party. Last year they had this other guy, I think his name was Steve Beshears or something, who was the former governor of Kentucky, who looked like a former cult leader, Marshall Applewhite, the former head of Heaven's Gate, who, not former, I mean, he killed himself like the rest of them. So the Democratic Party needs to show a coherent and well-constructed agenda to oppose Donald Trump, and it's not going to happen. There's inevitably going to be differences between the three different reactions, and Bernie Sanders technically isn't a Democrat, but he speaks for a large faction of Democrats, and it's going to be a problem going forward when people want to ask, what does this party exactly stand for? When some parts of the country it stands for X, and some parts of this country it stands for Y, and those are very different things. They're very hard to reconcile. So I think it's a real display of why people like me, we don't want to belong to a political party, at least not formally. I'm not trying to become involved in the Republican Party. I don't care how well Trump is doing or not doing. So that's my opinion on the State of the Union. I'm going to look if there's any important comments that I missed. Here you go, show chat. So Gabriel Swift says Michelle is a man again. Very persistent. Or what, did you read that before? Whatever. Pinochet says, have you read the book by Joe Conason? Well, that's a very funny coincidence. I'm reading one by him right now, and it's kind of, I kind of laugh when I read it. Yeah, I did go back a bit. Nikki Haley is smoking. I think she looks pretty good. I'm not gonna say she's super hot, but she looks she doesn't look bad. She looks pretty good compared to some people who used to be first lady. I can think of two people that I wouldn't really want to bang that were first lady. I think you would both agree with the two choices that I'm talking about. Pinochet says, did y'all see Trump's tweet today about Jay-Z? Yes, I did. I think he could have gone harder. How can allowing over 1 million illegal immigrants who are mainly not white be a white supremacist move? I don't know what you mean. Jay-Z is just jumping on the anti-Trump wagon. Bernie is a communist. Skeletor, welcome, Skeletor. True. Pinochet, yep. Progressive equals communist, and it's just that simple. You guys are a little more hardcore than me, but I guess you can say whatever you want. I think that there are progressives. So I'll talk about this at length a different time because it is late, and I didn't want to watch a little of. There's this movie I want to watch called American Made about cocaine smuggling, which is always a nice topic to talk about in the evening or to watch in the evening. So I don't know if I'll get to it today, and I should have, but I've wasted the whole day. I did go to the gym, but let's talk about what progressivism fits into. Now there are progressives and Democrats and liberals that fit into a number of categories that are better labels than that. The people that are more in favor of a large welfare state, but they don't want to necessarily confiscate all private business, okay, are social democrats. And social democrats, I'd say I oppose them. Those are like Keynesians, like the Krugmans or whatever. They're people that, you know, they're like the globalist left. And the Clintons would be the Clintons, the Obamas. You could say Jerry Brown is one of them. Andrew Cuomo. Establishment liberals. I think most of them would fall under the social democrat label. Then you go a little further to the left, okay, and you get some people that are democratic socialists. They outright want to, create less income inequality, and they're more aggressive about it. And those people are starting to get to what Pinochet is talking about here, and Joseph Stalin's here, so maybe he can, Pinochet and Joseph Stalin are in the room. There could be some sparks flying. I think Stalin actually left, so we've been monitored this whole time by a dead Soviet dictator. Um, you now have two dictators in the chat. What are the chances? Well, on this stream, it's very likely that would happen, and I guess we've created like a forum where two dictators are able to interact reasonably at peace. So how do you like them apples? Right? I wish there was a way. I have to fix it so that I can get the video to show the chat so that later we can come back. Although Pinochet was putting some stuff up yesterday, I wasn't sure I wanted on the video because he was really flying off the handle. Um, but anyway, yeah. There's social democrats, there's democratic socialists, and then yes, there are people who are explicitly Stalinists or they're further to the left. They're the the anti-reformist left, the people, the hardcore people, the Gang of Four type people, that they're against any compromise on any issue that relates to collectivism. Maoists, people like that, the Revolutionary Communist Party here in the U.S. There are people like that. So I think there are a few varieties. I just think there's different reasons to hate them. Just because they're not communist doesn't mean that they don't suck. That's what I would say in response to Pinochet's statement, oh, progressives are communists. No, I don't think that they're communists, but I think that they believe in things that are wrong, that are not necessarily communist ideas, like the idea that the welfare state should be expanded and that it's a good thing. No, I don't support that at all. But it doesn't mean that I think that they're communists. I think that they're very soft and apathetic towards communism, and that eventually systems like that they give way to communism. So that's what I think about that. Final issue: the Logan Act and John Kerry. So there is a report. I did discuss it briefly yesterday, that John Kerry contacted the Palestinians. He ordered them not to work with Trump. Ordered them, I think, is a little strong of a word. I don't know if that's really the correct word. I'd say he advised them not to work with Trump. So, look, we are seeing a renewed level of obstinacy out of the Palestinian camp. A couple weeks ago, Hillary Clinton, not Hillary Clinton, sorry, Mahmoud Abbas. I don't know how I confused the two, but Mahmoud Abbas, who's the president of the Palestinian Authority, issued a very incoherent and just bizarre rant that was about 16 minutes long, attacking Donald Trump, attacking the Israelis, attacking basically everybody, and claiming that the world had abandoned the Palestinians. But there were a lot of things he brought up that were they just simply didn't make any sense. I think he blamed Oliver Cromwell, who was the British Republican leader who deposed the monarchy in the 17th century, a Protestant leader who hated Catholicism. He blamed for some of the issues with the Jews in Palestine. It doesn't make any sense, and this is an issue that I think John Kerry maybe he does mean well. I don't care. That's not the issue. He meant well while he was Secretary of State, but he was a complete failure at it. He's probably although his classified information failures weren't as bad as Hillary Clinton, he's probably one of the worst secretaries of state ever. So Lisa PDX used the Jerusalem Post story. Now look, full disclosure, as always, I did serve in the IDF, so I'm not going to pretend that I'm objective on this issue, but I'll try to be objective when I give my opinion. Now, Mahmoud Abbas is under no obligation to take offers that he doesn't like. Okay, that's wrong to hold him to that. But you have somebody like him. He's probably as bad of a leader as you can get. He's a cold fish, has virtually no initiative, doesn't have his own alternative plan. Kerry, in fact, asked him during the meeting, according to these articles, to come forth with his own alternative plan to promote peace and go with it to the Israelis and try to restart it. Well, the problem is that Abbas doesn't want to do that. The status quo is his only hope of survival. If he were to run his own independent state, he would ultimately become accountable to his constituents, the citizens of the West Bank and Gaza, as a unified state of Palestine, and he likely wouldn't survive very long because there's people within his administration, within the state apparatuses of the Palestinian Authority, who are simply more youthful and more intelligent than him. He's not the most intelligent person, and his skill in remaining in power since 2004, which is, by the way, that he was in power before I was in the army. He came to power thanks to the death of Arafat, which I remember pretty well. Um, Pinochet. Mahmoud can McSuck me. I love this guy. Best commentator of all time. Well, not as good as Lisa, but pretty good. I mean, you try. So Mahmoud Abbas, look, he's been a horrible leader for his people, and people have turned to Hamas, which is an Islamist group, for help. There have been people in smaller numbers who have collaborated with the Israelis because there's really no hope of a future of success and prosperity for the Palestinian people with this geriatric delusional leader who's by the way, he is a Holocaust denier. So people who want to complain about Holocaust denial and the alt-right and then support the Palestinian Authority and their cause, well, their leader is a Holocaust denier. I'm against Holocaust denial. I'm not for censoring those opinions, but I think it's wrong to do it. I think it's historically wrong. It's delusional, and people should accept that it happened. And Abbas eventually accepted it, but he didn't give back the PhD that he got from writing a paper where he denied it. And in my opinion, it's an intellectual honesty issue. And he's just a dishonest politician. And Kerry, who's also pretty dishonest, but also very naive, went over to one of Abbas's, and this is according to the report. I admit it could be wrong. Could be that they got some details wrong. I would suspect that somebody leaked those details to the Israeli intelligence agencies. So, take that for what it's worth. If you don't trust them, you don't trust them. If you do trust them, fine. I think some of this has to be true. And apparently he went to them and he's under the impression that in the short term, Donald Trump will be out of office, and somebody else more reasonable to his mind, in his mind, will come to power and uh, broker a real Palestinian peace agreement. And this is another area where U.S. foreign policy has gotten itself involved in something that it's yielded nothing for us. But President Bush Sr. also got involved in the Middle East in order to broker a Israeli-Palestinian peace treaty. It didn't really go anywhere during his time in office because the prime minister at the time was more obstinate, Yitzhak Shamir. Right after that, when Clinton got elected, Yitzhak Rabin got elected in Israel, and some of his aides were very, very in favor of opening new peace negotiations. So President Clinton, and this is something that was a success for him, at least in terms of presenting himself as a world leader. He did broker the Oslo Accords, and that at the time was considered a great success. And he brokered other peace treaties, not related to over there. It was and there was a Wye River Accord, which was also signed during his time in office between the Israelis and Palestinians. But he did sign the Dayton Peace Accords with the Bosnian, um, the aggressors in the Bosnian conflict, the belligerents, I should say. There was, the Muslim Bosnians, the Croats, and the Serbs. So he did have that working for him. He had the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland. So President Clinton was involved in a number of important peace negotiations. But with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, there's a misconception that an international broker can come in and, bring these people to the table and hash out all the differences. I don't think that that's possible. I think really it was a mistake of Clinton's. It was an honest mistake, unlike some of the other crap that he did, which was, there was malicious intent. I think with this, he didn't truly believe that he could bring peace to the region, and he made a good faith effort to do it. But we're living with the consequences of it, and a lot of people died because of it. A lot of people, good people on both sides. Can I say that? Is that okay? Can I say good people on both sides and bad people on both sides? Um, Died because of President Clinton's brokered Oslo Accords, and I think that, in retrospect, they should have worked out a treaty to return a lot of the administration of these, territories and the citizens to the Jordanian and the Egyptian governments, and have them deal with it, because no, this really isn't working. I don't think it's working for anybody. I think the Palestinian people, they do deserve better. Does that mean that they're justified in their campaign and wave of terror? Absolutely not. They did some horrible things to accomplish this so-called liberation of Al-Quds, which is their name for the city of Jerusalem. And no, I don't think that they deserve to have won. Obviously, they did lose, and they've lost every war that they've been a participant of, and they continue they continue to talk using the rhetoric of armed struggle. They have never given it up. Made a couple videos on that issue. So John Kerry, journeying over there, it was a horrible move. I think he will come to regret it if he continues to be involved in politics. Look, there's many conflicts in the world that I think you can get involved in that can, to make for a better planet. I don't think that this is one of them. I think it's actually a quagmire. The U.S. should probably disinvest itself from the conflict, stop all military aid to the area too. Let the Israelis develop their own military industry. It's in everybody's interests that with the conflict become de-escalated, not become a geopolitical conflict, become more of some. And I think something could be worked out. This whole APAC nonsense. I have friends who are APAC supporters, and I kind of wonder sometimes, is their goal to win the war? Is their goal to achieve peace, or is their goal to continue this foreign aid relationship that I think is completely wrong and not productive on so many levels? So I think that's it. The Logan Act, I don't think John Kerry will be prosecuted for it. Maybe he should be. If it's proven that he attempted attempted to conduct diplomacy on his own without the consent of the Trump administration, I think that there was a case. Um, Pinochet is also talking about it. Why is it that Democrats go behind presidents' backs? So there was a guy who, his name was Cody Shearer, and I think he went to Croatia. So he went to Croatia in 2009 in the 90s, or he went to Bosnia, and he attempted to present himself as if he works for the Clintons, for the administration. His name is Cody Shearer, and in fact, if you know who Kathleen Willey was, one of the women who, let me see if I can probably see which book it is that's over my shoulder. Well, maybe not. Uh, yeah, here it is, Target. So she had this book called Target about her sexual harassment claim against Bill Clinton. She believes that the person who may have threatened her subsequently was Cody Shearer, who was affiliated with one of these Clinton affiliated magazines and private detectives and things like that. Um, he was the brother-in-law of Strobe Talbot, and Shearer worked for Terry Lenzner, who was a private detective working for Hillary Clinton. And apparently, he journeyed to Europe and made contact with Radovan Karadzic, who was a Bosnian Serb president, and attempted to say that he was an agent of the State Department. And then they had to spring him out, and there was a State Department investigation of him. This is from the National Review. I'll post the article in the chat. So even under the Clinton administration, there were weirdos who cropped up, and they tried to, um, they tried to show themselves to be, diplomats or whatever, and the Clintons got themselves out of it. And this was uncovered by David Bossie, who's he's more of a conservative figure. So this is from 2015. Apparently, he might have tried the same thing in Libya at a certain point. It says fast forward 14 years in early 2011, as a State Department sanctioned revolution against the Gaddafi regime in Libya was picking up steam, longtime Clinton consigliere Sidney Blumenthal was sending confidential intelligence memos to Hillary Clinton. He was touting leaders of the Libyan rebel movement with whom he had business dealings and pushing for the hire of private military contractors while working as an advisor to Osprey Global Solutions, a contracting company seeking to do business in Libya. Shearer was aiding Blumenthal in these intelligence gathering efforts. In one email message from 2011, first published by Gawker in March, Shearer appears to be serving as a liaison between Blumenthal and Grange, the former Army general and CEO of Osprey, as they attempted to organize a small team of contractors to conduct an unspecified mission to the Libyan border from Tunisia. He is also in frequent contact with Kay. So the real question is, why do these people keep coming up? Pinochet says what Ted Kennedy did behind Reagan's back was the one that opened my eyes. Well, yes, I have heard about that. So let's break for tonight. Let's get fresh for the coming days. Tuesday, Trump is doing the State of the Union. Maybe we'll also discuss in the meantime, the Grammys or something. I only found out that the Grammys were today because I heard about the political crap that was coming out of it. But thanks guys for the lively discussion in the chat. Chris Jones, Pinochet, Stalin, Lisa, Gabriel, Ming the Merciless, Skeletor. I think I said Gabriel already. Have a good night, and I am off. And J-Man Truth Seeker. So see you guys later.